It isn't? I said. No, not by a long shot. That's only the beginning. She asked me if I'd like to go out for an ice cream. You're kidding, I said. Marilyn Monroe asked you to go out for an ice cream? And I said, you bet I would. I said, oh, I can't believe it. How marvelous. I found my father and I told him I was going out for an ice cream with Marilyn Monroe. What did he say? He laughed. He said, sure you are, in a loud voice. He took a fake swing at me and hugged me and said to the clutch of people all around us, some kid, huh? Just like his old man, a real chip off the block. That was Dad, playing to the crowd as always, but a bad actor. Did you get the ice cream? I said to him. Sure did. We left that party hand in hand. She was wearing that white ruffled dress. What a pair we were. Me in my dark Undertaker suit, her in that white ruffled dress. I had a chocolate cone, she had a vanilla. What else? What did you do then? I asked him. Oh, we laughed and talked, drove around. I told her about Omaha and she told me about Hollywood. They didn't seem that different, not the way she told it. Then she asked me if I'd like to see where she lived. Oh, no, I said. Don't tell me you went to her house. Hey, she was driving. It wasn't much of a place, as I recall it. Small, kind of bare, no curtains on the windows, not much furniture, her stuff packed in boxes and cartons, like she was moving in or out. Not like a home, I said. He said, no, but I didn't care what it looked like. You were with her, I said. That's right. We sat in her kitchen and talked until the sun came up. Talked about stuff I cared about then, but had never verbalized to anyone, for fear of sounding silly. You know what I mean, hopes and fears, what life is all about. Oh, brother, it must have sounded incredibly corny. But she didn't laugh. Oh, we covered everything, we did. She made us instant coffee, she drank it with cream and sugar, and I told her I'd do the same. I'd never had a cup of coffee in my life. This is just wonderful, I said. Yeah, I know, he said, it really was. She was spooning the sugar into our cups, and she said, I played a girl named Sugar once. Some Like It Hot, I said, with Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, and the guy with the big mouth. Joey Brown, he said. I told her I thought that would be easy for her because she was so sweet. You didn't, I said. He said, hey, I was just a kid. What did she say to that? I asked him. She laughed and asked me if I knew who she was. And you did, I said. Of course you did. Well, I said, oh, you bet I do. You were married to Joe DiMaggio. Oh, no, I said, you didn't. He said, I was a big Yankees fan. Kansas City was practically a farm team in those days. What did she say to that? I said. He said, she laughed again, and she got tears in her eyes. And I said, oh, dear, she loved him. It just didn't work out. She had so much sadness in her life. They looked so beautiful, her eyes, the tears. I reached across the table and touched them, wiped them away. I told her I knew she was in the movies too, but I hadn't seen any of them. All I ever saw were the Tarzan movies, and she wasn't in them. I said, no, that was Maureen O'Sullivan, and she was somebody's mother. Was it Mia Farrow? He didn't say anything for a moment, and I was conscious of being on a bus again. His story was so absorbing that I'd forgotten where I was. I said, did she take you home then? He looked at me, a sadness etched into his face. No, he said, she didn't, but you mustn't ever tell this to anybody, promise me. I promise, I said, I won't tell. We were just enjoying each other's company, he said. I could have stayed there forever, and I swear to you, I think she felt that way too. I can believe that, I said. I think she was a very lonely person. Yes, he said, lonely. You know what she said to me? She said, you know, kiddo, if things had been different, if we had been born in different times, if, and she waved a hand in the air like a magician without a wand, then let it drop. Oh, that's sad, I said, like a magician without a wand. He said, and then I surprised myself. What did you do? I asked him. He laughed. I actually spoke up and said something. I said, but things are different. Things are very different. Isn't that what this is all about? Oh, my goodness, I said. What a lovely thing to say. I guess so, he said. I wasn't thinking about it. I just said it. You were speaking from the heart. Yes, I was. What did she say? Nothing. She laughed, that laugh, and touched my cheek, shook her head. Hair covered her eyes. It was quite a moment. I didn't know much, but I knew that, at least. I took her hand. Isn't it? I asked her. Isn't that right? And she said, Yes. I said, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. He said, she stood up from the table and we walked to her room. I said, oh my Lord above. She was holding my hand like it was dancing, he said. I knew what was going to happen in an abstract way, and I knew what it was. It was love, I said. I couldn't help it. I was crying. I was awkward. She didn't mind. She helped me. For a long time, all we did was hold one another. Then I kissed her, and she kissed me, first on the cheek, then my forehead, and then on my lips. He gave me a handkerchief, and I dried my eyes, then blew my nose. I said, I want to tell you that I think this is the most beautiful, saddest, happiest story I've ever heard, all rolled into one. Well, he said, and then you, I said. He said, yes. I stayed at her house for, 3 days, maybe 4. I swear to you, I lost all track of time. Oh, I can believe it, I said. Every so often I'd give Dad a call and leave a message with his answering service. I'd tell him I was okay, that I was staying with a friend, which was true. This is absolutely incredible, I said. The most incredible thing I've ever heard. We drank cold champagne and instant coffee and sent out for food, Chinese and pizza. And I told her, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me, ever. And I meant it. But even so, I'm not sure I knew then how true that was. I know what you mean, I said. It's so hard to appreciate things when they're right there in front of you. Like with Al, my husband. I miss him so much sometimes. Oh, I'm sorry, he said. It's all right, I told him. It was 9 years ago. It's only that he was shot to death in a robbery. He happened to be in the store, and it was so sudden. Yes, well, this was over 10 years ago, he said, but the memory is so fresh, so vivid. I said, yes, sometimes I almost feel like the memories are more real than everything that's going on about, he said. Exactly, I said. He said, I called her Mrs. Monroe. That made her laugh. She laughed a lot. When I think of her, I picture her laughing, filled with happiness, calling me kiddo. She smelled wonderful, was kind and gentle and warm, and we talked about everything. Tell me what you talked about, I said. Well, I didn't talk much, he said. Mostly I like to hear her talk. She talked about, books, movies, food, people. She knew everybody. Oh, yes, she did, I said. They all wanted to be around her. She called them swells and eggheads, but I was dazzled, he said. Joe DiMaggio would have been plenty for me, but when she talked about the President of the United States, I could hardly believe my ears. You mean Kennedy? I said. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of the United States, and there I was, a yokel from Nebraska. All I could say was, no kidding? I laughed. He said, she was lying on her back, her head on the pillow, laughing at my amazement. No kidding, she said. He says it's good for his back. Gets the kinks out. Oh, my Lord, I said. I've heard about that. His brother, too. Bobby, he said. And Dean Rusk and Robert McNamara, too. I said, you're kidding. He said, she became like a window to the world for me. All these people I'd only heard and read about. She knew them all. She said that McNamara, she called him Mac, was very proper. I was completely agog at the mention of these world leaders. The Kennedys, I said. She told me that the Cuban Missile Crisis had scared the daylights out of her because she'd been with Castro and Khrushchev, too, so she knew the personalities of the men involved. I said, no. He said, yes. She told me she sent each one of them a short note at the height of everything and thought maybe that had something to do with everybody cooling off and settling the dispute. My God, I said, she actually played a part in history. I'm telling you, she was in the middle of all of it. It's hard for me to remember all the men she'd known intimately. There was J. Edgar Hoover, but she said he was just a friend. Adlai Stevenson, Ike, Nixon, Dutch Reagan, he was still in the movies then, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, Sam Giancana, Joe Bonanno, Jimmy Hoffa, James Dean, Jack Kerouac, Willie Mays, Dag Hammarskjöld, Brando, Groucho, Milton Berle, Ed Sullivan, Walt Disney, Khalil Gibran, Einstein, Charlie Chaplin, Dr. Kinsey, Dr. Spock, Dr. Seuss, and Dr. Martin Luther King. What about Elvis, I said. He said, I'm not sure. She might have mentioned him. There were so many, like Walter Cronkite, Vince Lombardi, Werner von Braun. She had great stories about each and every one of them. Boy, could she tell a good story. Well, she really knew them, I said. That makes all the difference. That's right, he said. What finally happened, I said, between the two of you, if you don't mind my asking? No, it's all right, he said. We had a peach of the time, eating, taking showers, skinny dipping at night in the pool out back, and every so often I phoned my dad. She was supposed to be making a movie, and there she was with me, holding everybody up, costing somebody thousands and thousands of dollars. I know she did that, I said, but I never knew why. People thought she was very unreliable, unstable. Yes, well, not to me. If she had any problems, she didn't let on to me. I guess that tells you what kind of an actress she was, and what kind of a person I was, and what kind of a person she was, I said. He said, yes, beautiful, bright, and brave. I remember she told me, you have to be strong, kiddo, that's what men are. And what did she say about women? Beautiful, he said. Of course. Women have to be beautiful and strong. Yes, and she was. Oh, Lord. But she had to finish that movie, and I had to go back to my mom in Omaha, back to school and pass algebra. She made me promise I'd get an A. Did you? I asked him. I got a B, he said, but I worked hard for it. And you never told anybody. Not a soul, he said. Who could I tell? Who would believe it? No, it was my story, until now. How long after that was it that she... Not long, a few months. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I was sure we'd see each other again. It tore my heart out, and I had to bear the news alone. So she taught me that too, how to be strong. I started crying again. Oh, it's okay, he said. I'm in computers now, a real math whiz. I remember she told me when I left, love what you do and respect what you love. And to this day, that's what I try to do. When I drink champagne, I close my eyes and taste only the bubbles. When I smell that perfume, I think of her. I see her at that party. I'm sitting on that chair, the most miserable creature on earth, and there she is, Mrs. Monroe. The bus came to a stop, and the driver said, Columbus! The man said, say, this is where I get off. It's been a real pleasure. I said, oh, I can't tell you. I'll never forget this. Neither will I, he said. It's the most memorable thing that ever happened to me. Nothing else comes close, except maybe those days I spent with Belushi before he died. I said, you knew John Belushi? But the man was walking up the aisle and getting off the bus, waving back to me, putting a finger to his lips and giving me a wink. I never did get to hear that story. I didn't get his name either. Isn't that incredible? When I got to Cleveland, I wanted to tell everyone at the wedding about it, but I had promised, so I didn't tell anyone, except Carrie. I liked her husband well enough, but I found myself secretly wishing all throughout the ceremony that she could have somehow met that nice young man on the bus. I guess it just wasn't meant to be.